CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Today, we're going to learn about XOI, the only job site technology that connects people from all parts of a field service ecosystem with the equipment they service. We're going to get into the journey story and much more with CEO and co-founder Aaron Salow. Aaron, welcome to CMMS Radio.
Greg, thanks so much for having me, man.
It's a pleasure. We've been working on this for a while, and I didn't start pushing to make the appointment. And then someone we know in common, Josh Zolan with WCE, he also has blue is the new white. He was like, "Oh, you haven't talked to Aaron yet? Let me see if I can help." So he kind of pinged you guys, and we got this thing all set up. So quick shout out to Josh for kind of helping to get this to really happen. And I will tell you, Aaron, some of your employees were like pinging me over the last 1 to 2 years, like, "Hey, you should talk to Aaron on your show." And
nice.
I said, "Well, Aaron probably wouldn't necessarily agree that it's a CMMS, but it is a maintenance management solution." What's important for everyone out there to understand is that this is really designed around field service management. And that's really important because anybody that listens to CMMS Radio knows I love maintenance, all aspects of it, field service, facilities management, maintenance, all these things, everything in between, maintenance and reliability best practices. So if you could, please tell us a little bit about your journey story, and you can go back as far as you'd like, and then kind of bring us up to the formation of XOI.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Josh, shout out to Josh as well, one of my favorite human beings, and grateful he made the connection. So XOI was really, the origin story does go back quite a bit. So I'll offend some people in the Midwest by mentioning this, but I'm from Michigan. Go Blue. Sorry for everyone that just heard that didn't care about it, but national champs. Growing up in Michigan as blue collar as you might expect. It's funny, man. The reality of a blue collar family is different than I think a lot of people that aren't in that world. Where I remember growing up, it was like, this is what you do with yourself to make a living. It's something I was immediately proud of because I looked up to my dad, and my dad worked with his hands and he busted his butt. I remember my dad gashing his fingers, packing them with grease and kept working. Right. I mean, just famous for that. It's like, dude, you should get that sewn up. Hey, I'm good. Like, that's what I grew up around. My grandfather was a farmer. My uncles were all in the trades. And so I built a deep appreciation for what that meant in terms of hard work. And my dad actually became an entrepreneur when I was young as well. And so I got to see that path. I remember, him starting his business. We kept our food on the back deck in winter because we couldn't afford a refrigerator. So that's how we kept our food cold. Really humble beginnings, but I watched him build a business too. So I was really fortunate to see those two worlds really up close as a young man, which I think formed a ton of how I think about the world and a lot of how I raise my own kids. I have 2 boys and a little girl now, which is awesome and super blessed about, but amazing to see those grassroots people that kind of just, there's high BS meter. Like, they're always like, hey, I like call it like I see it. And I think a good day's hard work means a sore back. So got to experience that, got to work in that, got to work in the factory at a pretty young age and know what it means to put in a hard day's work. I remember my dad saying, hey, if you can run these machines like these other guys, I'll pay you $7 an hour too. And I was like, I'm going to be loaded. This is going to be awesome. $7, and so started working the factory when I was young. And as I got into, throughout my life, as I became an adult and my spring breaks weren't really Cancun. They were going back to the business to work. It was the summers to run machines. And so I remember looking at those opportunities and understanding that hard work is what mattered, that there was a pride in that. There was a sense of being a man and working hard, and it really formed my view of the world. And as I became a professional, it was clear to me that there was this kind of massive difference in how my generation thought. I'm a millennial, but barely. I'm 41. So I'm a geriatric millennial. And my generation and the ones after really looked down on these jobs and these people that did these jobs. And it became clear to me as I became an adult that that was the case. And that was representing itself in a bunch of myriad of crazy ways. And so the impetus for starting XOI was my experience in manufacturing. I was fortunate enough to not only help start a business there, but also see it be really successful from the ground up. And then I was able to go become a plant manager for a much larger company and learn a lot about that, design and sell clean rooms. And so I saw the permeation of this cultural generational difference happening before my eyes. And so XOI was really like, hey, there's smart glasses. We could use smart glasses to solve the skilled trades problem that we see. Because what I saw was like there was an opportunity to see what a tech saw, hear what he heard, talk to them about it in real time. We could use smart glasses to drive that solution into the ecosystem. And as dumb and naive and as crazy as that was on a ton of fronts, I was young and dumb enough to go do it. And that's when XOI was born. So I was able to work with a couple of my friends, use my own savings, my friends and family, and work. And I remember telling my wife, I'll get a salary in a year or two. I think I got my first paycheck 4 years later. So luckily my wife is a nurse and can help pay the bills. But I can tell you more about the business and what we do. But the genesis comes from a deep appreciation of men and women that work with their hands, an obvious recognition of a skilled trades gap. The impetus was smart glasses. I haven't sold a pair of smart glasses in 7 years. But the software, really, the genesis was from those experiences and continues to be about men and women working in the field. So that's my long story. You said go all the way back.
Yeah.
I went all the way back.
And we got to have fun with this stuff because you said a couple of things that are really important when we talk about maintenance people. And one of the common things is, their BS meter is it's beyond strong. I mean, it really no time for that stuff. And it doesn't mean we don't have fun and talk a little shit about stuff and kind of make fun of things. But maintenance people overall at all levels, I think generally speaking, and maybe even specifically speaking, want to do good work. They want to experience that kind of, maybe it's a plant turnaround, maybe it's an asset that failed and they get in there and they kind of save the day and they want to do that, but they're so into the work. I mean, one of my buddies, his name's Brian Pieski, and he's a CMRP. And one of the things when I had him on the very first time, he was telling me my favorite thing is to crawl around on your heavy equipment and figure out what's wrong with it and fix it right. Like no excuses, no nothing. And then you were telling the story about your dad. So working on a farm, working on these different things, whatever it was, you get a cut and he's packing it with grease. I mean, we don't see that very much anymore in 2024. And there's this idea of like evolution and then tying it back to like generational gaps or generational differences in how they view the world. You're on that fringe when you say millennial, but you've got a lot of Gen X influence in there. So you can kind of put the two things together. That's the advantage. Yeah. So I want to get back to like the XOI technology and what it really is. What I like about it is you're empowering the tradesmen that are out there doing the work. They're not sitting behind desks. And then for you to have put that together and seen that as a way, like with the virtual, with the glasses and being able to see how to do something, what comes next, that's advantageous. But when you meet the frontline worker where they are out in the field, I think that's where you really level up. And I think I want to ask, what's your view on the idea of people and process being the most important to an organization and a team prior to leveraging technology? Just anything, just fire away.
Yeah. So to take the XOI learning, and it answers the same question a little bit further. When we realized like, gosh, these smart glasses are going to be tough. We're giving a technician a $2,000 pair of smart glasses that they're definitely going to break because they did. And I can tell you stories for hours about all the fun we had at the beginning. We went to software only, but what we were forced to do in the best way possible is to go, well, this isn't going to work, but man, there's something else here. And so my co-founders and I spent tens of thousands of hours on job sites with guys. And, my background is manufacturing, not in the field. It's in the factory, manufacturing for heavy industrial truck, automotive, that type of thing. I spent enough time on an HVAC job site in the past 10 years building XOI that I've learned enough about what I don't know, but enough to be a little dangerous. But what we learned is that, man, the job site was super under designed and sold from a software perspective. Like there was just underserved is the word I was looking for. It really didn't have the type of technology it needed. And I think it speaks to the nature of how we view people that do those jobs. That entire industry had been sold a lot of technology at the corporate level, a lot of technology to run the business. And when the guy or gal got to the job site, it was like, good luck, have fun, right? Your expertise will figure it out. You're by yourself on a job site, 8 job of the day, 120 degrees, right? In our world, because we do heavy mechanical, electrical, plumbing, figure it out. And so we realized this concept of like, you got to have use cases that benefit the men and women on the job. There's a ton of other stakeholders that care about this. A facilities manager, their boss, using the commercial world as an example. We do both largely commercial and really growing quickly in residential, but your facilities manager who has a D&E, who has to get approval from their boss. How are you communicating those things on a job site? And it was really interesting as we've articulated this vision more when we think about people and process. Service businesses, multi-billion-dollar market, what are they selling? They're selling uptime. CMMS systems largely are selling uptime. I'm not going to pretend to be a CMMS expert. That's not what we sell. It's for service providers, but largely uptime. Of course, there's people, process that support that uptime. But in large part, they're selling this idea that you have mission critical equipment that's serviced by your own employees, third-party employees. There's all these building expectations around data. We need it to be up. This is the core of a service business and what they offer to people that use CMMS solutions, right? And it was largely ignored. It was largely ignored. So we really take an approach. Our number one core value is we put ourselves in our technicians' work boots. So the first thing on the 5 things that guide this company, and it's how we sell, it's how we market, it's how we build product. If you are not engaging the men and women that are busting their butts out there in a meaningful way, you're never going to get adoption. You're never going to get engagement. If you don't care about what matters to them, if it's some episodic app that they have to figure like, oh, what was that app my boss gave me that the password was this? And so people build some really great solutions that never get used and they're scratching their heads. And it's like, because you don't talk to these people. We have over 100 people at XOI now. I do job walks all the time. And our team has to do job walks if they want to work here. It's the non-negotiable of being here, right? I don't care where you sit. If you're in a big city in a nice condo, you better get some steel toe boots and get out and feel. And if we ever lose that as a business, we'll lose our ability to be effective, for our customers. So I went on a tangent a bit, sorry, but I think when you talk about people and process and change management, get in the field. And that's companies that have field service companies, anyone that's leveraging blue collar talent in any way. If you assume you know what they need, then you haven't spent time with them, right?
Yeah. This is so good. So good. And to everybody, I'm not virtue signaling here. Not at all, man. I'll tell you right now, if we look at the big picture, that really is a reflection of that small picture, the frontline worker, and these concepts of go and see, spend time on the plant floor, get out in the field, walk facilities, understand what a day in the life is like for the people that you serve. You start to understand that more deeply. And a lot of people out there are like, that's a bunch of bullshit. No, it's not. And you have to be connected to the world that you actually serve instead of just buzzwords and, our technology does this, that, and the other, because, and I'm going to say this, nobody cares about your technology. Nobody cares about your features. None of that stuff. They care about the problem that they're trying to solve. And when we're dealing with the field, whatever that is, it could be inside the plant, it could be out on the grounds, it could be at a campus, it could be on the rooftop with all the HVAC, all that stuff. I talked to somebody this week on an actual home, a house. Mm-hmm. He said, we were at a home today and we were servicing 17 units. And I said, how big is this house? And he said, it was incredible. And you start thinking about all that, you're out there doing real work. So for you to have your team members do this as part of their job, it gives them far better understanding of what's really happening. Whether they're service people or not, they can start to learn through osmosis and not ever be disconnected from what that really is. So I love that because I come from a service industry background. I've been part owner of a CMMS and co-founder and those things. And that's like the magic. It's not secret sauce. It's just do what you do and do it well and understand who you serve.
Yeah,
I can't
absolutely.
stand ICPs and avatars and all that kind of stuff. I want to go beyond that.
Yeah.
And
A couple of really powerful examples of that psychology, man, that we learned early on was like good technicians care more about what their customers think than what their bosses think or tell them to do.
yeah,
Right. It comes back to your point about a guy crawling across a machine. It's because the best of us are professionally proud. Right. There's a high sense of pride in doing it the right way. Like, it's an art when it's done the right way. My wife teases me all the time. I'll be sitting in we'll be taking the family and we're at a breakfast place or coffee shop. And I'm like, do you see how that electrical conduit's bent up there just perfectly? She's like, yeah, I get it. I'm like, it's beautiful. That is a work of art. That is of somebody that has professional pride in what they do. And I think that the nature of things like, with XOI, we're like, the customer doesn't have good visibility on what's happening here. As we think about building workflows and video content to be able to show the customer what's happening because they're not on the roof or they're not in the mechanical room, whatever, and we can build a mechanism for feedback to the tech. Gosh, our adoption rates, early days, our adoption rates go up when the customer's like, hey, Joe, thanks for that. That was awesome. Hey, Greg, I really appreciate it. That helped me justify something. Oh, that safety concern is a problem. Thank you for showing that to me. And so it was like, oh, that's it. Because a service manager being like, Joe, use the we paid all this money for this software, man. It's like, what's in it for me? It's the old with them. But if you don't spend time understanding what motivates somebody, right, what they care about. And I think that's at least one of the things that permeates between anyone who does this work is professional pride.
I like that. And if you're okay with it, I'm going to start using that moving forward because it says so much with just 2 words and you can see the difference. I have a really good friend of mine over the last, it's really close to 30 years. His name's Wick Zimmerman and he owns this incredible company where they do, it's called OTL, Outside the Lines, and they do these incredible themed construction, water fountains and all that. You'll see it at like AT&T Stadium and some of these really premier groups. And we were talking about this idea around that pride. And when you're setting up the things that the customer will never see, and let's say you're gluing the PVC within a system and you got all that purple primer hanging out on the end. And he was telling me an example of where he said, wait, what's going on here? That looks kind of messy. And the tech said, well, one of the builders was like, well, nobody's going to see that. And he's like, yeah, you're right. Nobody's going to see that, but I just saw it. You saw it. Redo it. And his point wasn't that won't work. I don't care if anybody sees it or not. He's like, do work like that because then we're never going to have to go back. Yeah. And if we are going back, it's going to be to do maintenance, not because we screwed up something. So this is all, this is why I like these conversations. So I wanted to ask about when it comes to the technology and we look at the AI and the machine learning, a lot of people out there will tell you that most solutions out there that are purporting to leverage and utilize AI or they have machine learning, they kind of get at the surface level. And, I might piss a few people off and I'm not trying to. What I'm trying to understand is where is there some real kind of meat on the bone, something that really works and impacts what's happening in the field. Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit more about how you're leveraging AI and the machine learning so that it's actually doing something substantial?
Yeah. I could soapbox on that for a while and I'll piss some people off for you if you want me to. But I do. I believe that we have a lot of technology companies who got their boards, their investors in boardrooms and said, deliver some stuff on AI to the field, right? And these episodic kind of point solutions that have come out, and it's just ignoring completely the nature and how people work in the field and in our space. I was really proud of our product team. To kind of tell you how we got here, we realized that continuous was important. So we started a lot of data from technicians about the assets they worked on, how those assets were performing, how technicians were performing based on their experience, which is fascinating, right? We don't have good information on that. And so understanding like, okay, Greg has 26 years of experience. Since he's been in XOI, we can see that he predominantly works on these model families. This is in that model family. It's this age. it tends to behave this way, right? In the local market that it's in, based on environmental parallels or whatever the case may be. And so we started to get really granular about the data that's connecting the human and the equipment, as it was maintenance, break fix, startup commissioning, stuff like that. So we naturally have more data than I would argue anyone else in mechanical on how to build a really cool chat GPT like experience. And we've done some POC type stuff there. But I was really proud of, and we'll release more stuff methodically and carefully, and I'll tell you how if you're interested to hear more. But our product team was like, yeah, but what's the busy work? What's the busy work that generative AI or data analytics for a tech really matters? And they pinpointed the thing that most techs, I know the ones that might be listening to this or guys that have done this, go, I'm that 1%. 99% of techs don't want to take verbose notes at the end of a call, right? And be a novel and all the detail and all the technical information. There's that 1% out there. And so we said, gosh, they're doing these workflows because they're learning how to do it the right way, or they want to give the customer that great experience we just talked about, or they want the lady in the office to get off their backs because they didn't get good information. This makes it easier. If they can just hit a button and this thing creates an amazing summary, that'd be pretty powerful. The technician's critical function is not writing a great summary. The 1% that do it, sure, they do it great. 99% are like, I came and fixed it. And they're like, I can't bill 12 grand and I came and fixed it, right? I need more detail. So we created AI generated summaries, really just said, this is something that our techs are already doing in the field today. They hit a button, it generates a beautiful summary. They can edit it if they want to, and it connects into all the ecosystem and it's done. And it's accompanied by asset information, all the video content, justifying everything in the field. And so that's been our first step. Are releasing 2 more AI-based things for the field, and we also built some things for the back office and the sales side. But that's an example of busy work that is not a critical function of a technician. I think even the best technicians, I mean, maybe again, the 1% might go, no, that's part of my job. Your job is to really smartly walk through logically how to fix something, how to solve for it, how to make sure that you're prepared to get the job done effectively, get the customer up, right? And that's where their skill sets exist. And so we're trying to pull that busy work that impacts the ecosystem off of them. And that's where AI generated summaries came from. And then we added multilingual on top of that. So growing Hispanic workforce, right? Communicating with English speaking folks in North America. How do we transition that? How about French Canadians? So we looked at French. So started to really kind of increase those communication rows as well.
Yeah. And the idea here is that, you're not one and done. You are, not really cookie cutter. It's going to continue to learn. And it sounds like your team, from a product perspective, as well as the other, even the clients and the technicians feeding in the information, you guys are like constantly watching it instead of just being one and done. You're like, well, what's changing right now? What's changing behaviorally? Can we connect that to something that's not just meaningful or surface level, but what's in the middle? Like where does it actually drive and make impact and add value, as opposed to a lot of the generalizations? And to be clear, everybody out there that's saying AI and machine learning and it's just surface level, don't take that as a dig. Take that as a call to action, because all of us with what we do, we want to sell software and all these things, but we want, like for me personally, like this is really me. I want the elusive win-win, the closed loop. We're all winning together. I want my clients thriving. I want my guests to benefit from being on CMMS radio. I want them getting good software from people that get it. A lot of organizations out there still have, really green salespeople on the front lines. And I want them to say, well, why am I green? Just go learn more, talk to people, listen to your clients. And you're right about these technicians. I used to call them gunslingers, cowboys and cowgirls. They want to get out there and do what they do, and they know how to do it, and they're really, really good at it. And they don't necessarily want to get bottled up creating those detailed notes. They're out there, like you say, the 1%ers, and it just depends on how they roll. If you get a millennial or a Gen Z, they're like all about the technology. Now we got to figure out how to get wrenches in their hands and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to ask about like concerning trends, and one that I always like to talk about is the skilled trades gap, and how we're going to have, guys and gals that are retiring, changing careers, switching over. They're not going to be here to help us and guide us. So you're gathering all this data, but for the skilled trades gap, where we're seeing the younger generations less inclined to be in the trades, personally, I see a severe lack of shop classes in junior high and middle school, or middle school, which we call junior high where I'm from in the Midwest, and then also in high schools. That's one thing. But are there any things that you're seeing around that concern that are improving for not just millennials, but Gen Z and subsequent generations?
Yeah, in fact, I think some of the more recent studies I've seen, and I think it's guys like Josh Zolan and others, and Mike Rowe, and these guys that have really push the skilled trades training, the funds, the associations that drive this seems to be working, because the latest data seems like you got Gen Zers starting to get into this stuff. They're kind of waking up to $250,000 in debt, a Brit Lit degree, and Starbucks isn't probably the best path, right? And so, which is great. I think the skilled trades is the reason I started the company, and it's a huge reason why we continue to drive. I think what's really continued to impact that, although I think the winds are changing, a completely quick moving regulatory environment. You've got, changing equipment. Department of Energy is continuing to change out refrigerants and HVAC requirements, safety requirements around how this equipment is made. So you kind of have knowledge dissipation on both ends of the spectrum, where guys that are retired, the guys that are left from the guys that retire, are getting the equipment changed on them at a pretty rapid rate. And so I think you have an opportunity more than ever to engage them in meaningful ways and allow companies to hire younger, greener technicians that are more effective faster. Part of that story I alluded to earlier is like, what does training mean? What does continuing education look like? And what's the impact to me as an owner financially? People we'd all agree training is a good thing. Continuing education is a good thing. Not many companies, if any, have ever quantified it. Like my investment in training is returning this in terms of how many jobs these guys can see, what kind of equipment, how diverse the equipment they can service looks like. And so that's been a big focus for us. And then also, like, part of our product also is really intentional around newer generations, as well as kind of meeting guys my age and up who want to be met where they are. And what I mean by that is our workflows have this guided operation or micro learning opportunity built in, where guys are loading in, typically on average, they could load an hour video if they wanted, but we really encourage our customers, use microlearning. Step one, here's a 26-second video on how to do step one. Show me you did it correctly. Here's a wiring diagram on step two. We kind of tell this new generation a TikTok attention span, right? So look, shooting them a YouTube video, which, YouTube's been around for a while now, hard to believe. It feels like it's hard to say it's already prehistoric. But if you think about TikTok and you think about all the attention spans of the younger generation, they're not going to sit down and watch a 32-minute training video. What do I need? Show me, remind me how to do this again in the moment. Great, I'll do it just like that. Where's the wiring diagram? I'll wire it like that. So we try to be intentional to grab younger users as well as older. In that process, I think, and kind of tying in the AI thing, I heard a CEO of an AI company, remain nameless at this point, recently at a trade show. They go, how do you handle older guys that don't want to use your AI chatbot thing? And he said, seriously, I thought he was joking at first. He said, I tell my companies, my customers, to tell those guys that they have to use it. It's their job to train the AI. You've been around a lot of blue collar people in your life. What would they say if they heard that? 52-year-old guy said it's your job to train the AI. I almost lost it. I was like, yeah, how many F words did you hear when you told that guy that, right? And if you didn't hear it to your face, he certainly said it to himself walking away. It's a misunderstanding of what people care about, what they think, and how they may respond to something like that. So whether it's building it in ways that younger people can get it, ensuring that you're respecting how someone that maybe at middle age or later in life needs and wants to work, it's a combination of coming back to the beginning of our conversation. Are you freaking talking to people? And learning about what they need and what they do. You also shouldn't ignore the 21-year-old. No one's saying that. But at the same time, if we just think all those guys retiring in 10 years are good, you're missing a huge opportunity to impact your business.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something that's really important. And this thought popped into my head. Well, if because you're talking about, how many F-bombs did you hear and all this stuff. And the way that really works, in my view so far, is if you have conversations with these people, you can get that information. But if those individuals have to go and sit down at a desk and teach this thing, they outran that a long time ago. It's not that they don't want to be mentors, but they want to do it in more of a classical sense where they're talking to somebody. So take your team members that are going to be involved in managing and teaching and kind of monitoring, I think, the machine learning and the AI, have them learn from those technicians, but do it in a way where those technicians, those guys and gals that don't really have the time to do that, make it possible for them to do it. Like, in other words, figure out what it would take for them to say, oh yeah, I would do that. For example, 1 day per month, they're going to have a 2-hour meeting with a couple of people and just talk a bunch of shop as far as what happens from their perspective. And when you're getting those good closeout notes and the solution that you have, whether it's a CMMS or similar, right? Anything like this, it becomes a historian. So those individuals that want to continually make that machine learning and AI better, they have to be in there swimming around with that data and that information. And then they have to go talk to these guys and gals that created that. Because there's a bunch of stuff that's missing behind the words that they can learn and better program that. Now, I think it's lofty, but if people will just start doing it now, over the next 1, 2, 3 years, it'll improve because that's the way we get beyond surface level. Real problems, real information, how that's all connected to inform the subsequent generations or just your team members. Shit, what we used to do is we'd have everybody in their role, like when we were at the CMMS company, for example, or even in building maintenance. People that were in critical roles, we would have them, in a sense, document somehow what they do. Not as a micromanagement thing, but more as, this concept of leave the place you're at in better condition than when you got there. That was all it was. So instead of saying, yeah, just do it, that's your job, we would say, here's why we're doing it, because you do this really critical job and you do it well. We want people to have some kind of a visibility to that, because then they can learn from you. And if you do it a little bit each week, we're good. It'll start to stack up. And
that's right.
We could really spin out on this subject. I can see it because I can see your gears turning. And this is why the technology is so great when it meets people where they are. And you're also talking about, how do we connect the business to the front line and everything in between? That's a real challenge for all organizations because, again, it's not a one and done thing. They have to make this part of what they do as an org. And they have vendors like you that want to be part of that and learn from them and guide them. So again, I'm always coming back to that win-win. It's elusive. Keep chasing it. You can do it. I want to ask about this concept of what does it mean to go digital with purpose?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've hit, when I think about that question on the surface, my gut is that the purpose is a lot around what we talked about, and it's largely a thing that's missed. I think that it is getting feedback. I'll say as a different perspective too, it doesn't mean that every piece of feedback from the front line is gold and should be built immediately and be available for everyone either.
Yeah.
Right. And I think some people hear us talk so much about the front line because they're largely ignored. It is about listening, learning, and going, hey, they may not even be aware this could be solved in a different way. And it's our job as folks that build technology to go, hey, I know you said you wanted X. This is actually Y, but see how Y solves X and Z? Oh, yeah, that was a thing. Yeah, that works, type of thing. Yeah. And so that's where you want a software company thinking is, hey, there is a technology that's a known quantity or something we developed or innovated that actually takes this to a different level. I think about, that kind of ties to the CMMS world. OCR, we built an OCR engine early on, and we kind of think about this framework. This applies to AI, it applies to product development as a whole, but in the field, you got to have engagement with the user on every job, meaning it's providing value for them, their customer, the office. Like there has to be that multiple stakeholder engagement to get adoption. That's going to create structured data. So that structured data is something, once it's structured, you can start to pull number 3, which is insights. When you have those insights, you can re-engage your user base and many other folks with those insights. If you talk to companies doing AI or anything else, they go, hey, we can build all the cool things. We just need tons of structured data and distribution, which is really 1 in 4 of that plan. And so when I think going digital with purpose, people want to jump to 4 and they don't have good asset registration. We built OCR because guys were like, we were like, well, first of all, that wasn't guys. It was people in the office that went, yeah, we got like 4% asset registration. There's companies that we work with that are massive publicly traded businesses, would shock you how little information, maybe not because you're in this world, how little information they have about their customers' assets. Why was that? This was in the field. Well, it was a guy covered in sweat and dirt typing in a 29 character alphanumeric serial number.
Ridiculous.
Any chance they didn't do it, didn't want to do it, typed it in wrong, right? All the different things. So we're like, just take a picture. And as you think about those 4 steps, so being intentional with being digital, well, we were like, okay, well, we're getting this information now. We're pushing it back to their FSM, ERP, CMMS, whatever the case may be, really quickly, along with notes and video and detail about all these things. Gosh, this engine's getting pretty quick. Like we can take a picture of a data plate and it's spitting it back really quickly. We're bringing it on device. We're doing all these cool things. They also need manuals, wiring diagrams, and service bulletins, and relevant training content. And if we can build that around the asset, well, then small ask, big outcome. We think about that a lot for the field, frontline, like small ask, picture, outcome. I didn't have to type it in. I got the manual, the section of the manual I needed, a video, a service bulletin, and if all that doesn't help, it linked me live video to a guy who's an expert on that unit if I need support. And I took a picture. So if you look through that kind of as we developed over time, engagement, we took crap off the guy's plate he didn't want to do that everyone complained he didn't do right. That created a lot of data. The insight showed us like, well, it's fast. They're also missing all this other data. We can extract other stuff. What if we push back re-engagement more to the user and the rest of the ecosystem as a result? People want to jump to 4. How do I build the coolest, sexiest? It's available. We should do it because technology allows us to, without looking back and going, how much do I know about frontline workers in our world? How much do I know about the machines they service? Can I tell you that this thing's going to break 9 times out of 10 in these ways? Because I have attributed the data to it and I've seen in us, failure mode effective analysis that pull into manufacturing world or any type of failure rates to understand what's probable. So to me, it ties to take a step back and say what processes are broken, what data is siloed, and how am I thinking about engaging the right people to get the right structured data, to get the right insights, to give them meaningful re-engagement by going digital, not just crap. And so that's one way I think about kind of doing it with purpose.
You mentioned something that's, I think it's really important. So in the world of reliability, maintenance and reliability, and everything we do in that world, I'm not a CMRP. I'm working on it. But I learn a lot from some of the practitioners out there that really get it, right? Like Reliability X, George Williams, Joe Anderson, a lot of what they've got a course on CMRP. But you mentioned something about failure modes, which we could also say are failure codes, and it's one of the central things that doesn't get leveraged out there, and that's why I'm glad that you said it, because it's one way to again further create valuable data that's also meaningful. And then you're talking about circling around the equipment asset, which is in a lot of ways, for years, I've said the lifeblood of your operations or your customers' operations. I'm not devaluing the people that do the things, but that's the thing we're trying to protect to create more availability, far less failure, et cetera, et cetera. So this is all good stuff. I want to skip us into the fun question segment.
Yeah.
If you're ready for that. Now,
ready.
This is kind of, I ask these questions of first-time guests on CMMS Radio, and it just helps us get a little bit more insight. It's fun stuff. No wrong answers on any of this stuff. So fun question number 1. What is your favorite music?
Rock music, no question.
So we talking heavy metal or classic rock or all of it?
Yeah, so I'm a 90s kid.
Right.
So, yeah, I would say hard rock, alternative rock, definitely in that vein. I heard this thing recently that the music you listen to between 12 and 15 years old, that kind of makes your taste in music. I don't know if that's true for you or not, but I would say that 12 to 15-year-old, for me would have been early 90s, mid 90s. There's a lot of Stone Temple Pilots, Nirvana, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam in me there. So still a massive fan of rock. it's mostly dead and has been for 10 or 15 years. Sorry, new rock bands. But I also love, Van Halen, AC/DC. I saw the Metallica shirt. Love to know what your favorite Metallica record is, actually. But yeah, those kind of bands.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It's so hard for me to pick a favorite Metallica album. So lately, I've spent a lot of time again with Ride the Lightning, but there's a few that I can say, yeah, I'm not too into that, and God, it's interesting. It would probably match up with what James Hetfield doesn't like either. But Ride the Lightning's pretty consistent for me. I like the Black Album. And I just, there's something about their music that resonates in so many different ways. There's stories in it.
Really does.
Yeah, it's impactful. And I was going to ask you when you were talking about rock and you brought up the 90s. I know it would be closer to the 2000s, but like I think about bands like, Disturbed, Godsmack, and there's a lot of good stuff there. So this is why I say there's no wrong answers, and it's just fun, cool stuff to kind of figure out, what you like, what you love. Next fun question. So sorry I didn't pick a real favorite, but we're gonna go with Ride the Lightning for right now. Fair enough.
I'm gonna throw Death Magnetic out there. I know it's a 2008 record. I love Death Magnetic. And I love all the old ones too. But man, I thought that was a good record.
Cool.
Underwhelming to a lot of people for some reason.
Yeah, but if they can get beyond the surface, they'll probably find some good stuff in there. And by the way, anybody that wants to hear a really cool podcast, the Metallica Report. And I'm also a big proponent and supporter of All Within My Hands, which is Metallica's nonprofit. They've got the Metallica Scholars Program that I'm really fond of, where they leverage these relationships with damn, I'm spinning out, man. I never do this on the fun question segment. So the shirt is because I wanted to support that. And I also have some friends over there that I've got some stuff coming on that.
Sorry, man. You can keep rolling. I'm pulling you off track.
I'm good with that, man. I'm good with that. This is a real conversation. This isn't scripted. So next fun question is, what is your favorite sport or hobby? And on the sport, it doesn't necessarily have to be one that you play. It could be one that you like to support and watch and kind of cheer for.
Yeah, football for sure. I think it's the only sport that two teams I could care less about are playing, and I can watch it. I like watching baseball. I like watching basketball, but usually to support my teams. Yeah, I can watch any college game, any NFL game, and enjoy it.
That's nice, because you can just appreciate the game for itself. So I like that. I really like that one. Because for me, it's not like that. Once my team's out, then I can watch it and go, I don't care. I want to see great plays. I don't want anybody getting hurt and all that shit. So
hobby would be motorcycles. So I'll just throw that out there. I just rebuilt a Scout Bobber, and I'm super proud of it. So yeah, man, I love riding.
That's cool. That's very cool. I got a lot of friends that do. I myself don't, but that's good stuff. The big one on the fun questions is, what is your philosophy or perspective, opinion on work-life balance?
Yeah, it's something that, if I'm honest, is something I struggle with always, especially with 3 kids, and spending that time, because I think it's become more like work-life integration, where I am. A lot of guys walk around and say being a dad's my number one job, but they don't put their time and investment where their mouth is. It's just something cute to say in a conversation. And I felt very deeply about making sure that that's reality when I say it. And I've invested alongside that the last couple of years. So what that means is there may be email, project, whatever I'm working on, happening at 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And I have to structure my nights differently to make sure I'm getting the rest I need, et cetera, to go be, a great entrepreneur, a great husband, and a great dad. So I've really changed my view on that. I think it is really about integration, in that, if my kids got something at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and it's important to them, I'm going to be there. Right. Because I'll go make sure the other stuff happens at a different time. And I think that, that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm probably wrong, and I'm probably going to learn more. So it's a work in progress, my man. That's the honest answer.
I like it. And that is why, with all these questions, The reason I say there's no wrong answer is it's going to resonate somewhere. And, I'm here to showcase you and your company and the technology and talk about some things that actually are real about industry as a whole. That's my goal here. And it's not to sell stuff or anything like that. It doesn't mean I don't have sponsors or promotional things, but it's just these great conversations that could be useful for somebody.
Yeah.
And I try to keep it that simple so that I don't go off the rails. I don't want my head getting big. Otherwise the hat won't fit. So got to stay grounded. And I like your answer. I like every answer everybody's ever given to that because it's useful. It's useful in some way, shape, or form. So I want to let everybody know that you can connect with Aaron on LinkedIn. You can also find XOI on LinkedIn or at their website. And remember, it is the only job site technology that connects people from all parts of a field service ecosystem with the equipment they service. If you hook up with Aaron or the company, tell them Greg at CMMS Radio sent you, just because I like to hear about that. And if you do work with them, call me, email me, connect with me on LinkedIn so we can talk about it, because I love journey stories of any kind that have to do with maintenance management, CMMS, and anything in between. Doesn't matter. Aaron, thank you so much for coming on CMMS Radio and sharing part of your journey story with us.
Yeah, thank you, brother, for having me. Appreciate you.
You got it. Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.